Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dave from Chase the Summit and you are joining me in Los Angeles, California for Camp Strava. Camp Strava is sort of a media and press event for Strava, of course, the app on your phone. Social media platform where you can share your runs or in rides. I don't need to explain that to you. If you run or ride, you know what Strava is. So I just attended the Strava keynote where CEO Mike Martin sort of came out and explained all of the new features along with some other Strava staff. And in this video, I'm just gonna run through these new features, try to explain them as best I can, share my thoughts and opinions on them, and just give you sort of a rundown on all of the new stuff coming to the Strava platform very soon. Some of these features are pretty minor and small, but some of them have been highly requested for a very long time, and I'm sure a lot of you will be really appreciative of some of these updates. So the keynote kicked off with CEO Mike Martin explaining some key facts about Strava over the past couple of years, and he mentioned one specific thing that I found kind of interesting, and it's that 10 billion human-powered activities, 10 billion with a B, have been uploaded to the Strava platform, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about that. Like, all of that data is out there. So after he went through some of those stats and metrics, we got into the good stuff, and they kicked it off with Zipporah Allen, who's another Strava staff member, explaining how they're starting to build out features for women, and they sort of summarize this as saying they're building for her. So these new features aren't specifically only for women. I think everybody will benefit from them, but they had women in mind when they designed them. And the first feature that they talked about on stage was night heat maps. And why that would be useful is to show where most people are working out, either riding a bike or running at night. So that's a heavily trafficked area, that's going to be a well-lit area. And if you're not from that area, if you're traveling, for example, this is a great way to tell where you should be, going for your run in the nighttime hours. So this is a really useful feature. On top of that, they also added a new quick edit function for your activities. This isn't entirely new. You could always edit your activities, but in the past, to edit an activity, you would have to dive into that edit tab and then manually go through all your things. Now you can simply dive into an activity where you can hide and show simply by tapping a little eyeball icon on each of the different metrics. For example, if you want to hide your map from your activity, you don't want to show where you ran for that specific activity or the time of day that you ran, you can hide that information by simply tapping the little eyeball icon, and that will be invisible to all of the people looking at your profile, which is very useful. Moving right along, let's talk about Strava clubs and groups, because there's been a number of updates to this as well, and this is coming in the very near future as well. So the first thing that they've changed is that you can now create a club without visiting the Strava website. In the past, you wouldn't be able to do this within the app. Now you can. The next new feature is direct messaging within clubs. So as you might remember, a few months ago, Strava announced that they'd be including direct messaging. Now you can do that within the club experience. So if you want to message a few members of your club to organize a run that evening, you can include those people in a chat and then chat with them directly about your plans, what time you're meeting up, and all of that information, which I think, again, is very useful, especially if you use the clubs feature. In the final clubs update is that they've also included challenges within clubs. Next up, we've got family plans, and I am personally very excited about this. As you might remember, the price of Strava in the past year or so has gone up. We were all kind of bummed out about that when it happened. If you're a subscriber, you probably saw it on your credit card. Now they're introducing family plans, and as the name implies, it means you can have multiple people join together into one family plan, and that will give everybody in the plan a discount on their subscription. And the cool thing about this is they actually said this broadly, is that you can actually include anybody in your family plan. This could be friends, this could be your direct family, this could be somebody in your run club, your kids, your nephews, just anybody you're close with, you're able to include into that family plan, so everybody gets a discount. Now, they didn't quite explain what kind of discount you'd be getting and how much it's going to cost. I guess that's going to come further down the road, but it is exciting to see, and I do appreciate it as somebody with a family. Moving right along, we're getting into some of the bigger stuff here. Let's talk about some of the mapping upgrades that they've made within the app and on the website, because now they're going to be leveraging the power of AI to create routes within Strava, and I found this to be super cool. Now you can leverage the power of AI to input things like the desired distance, what kind of elevation gain you want, and it will actually incorporate things like the weather conditions and even more down the road, and it will design a course for you. So if you're traveling to an unknown area and you want to get that 10-mile trail run in with a lot of elevation gain, you can kind of input that into Strava and it will sort of spit out a route for you. I haven't been able to test it, but it does look very exciting. And on the topic of heat maps, as I mentioned before, they've also added another version of heat maps called weekly heat maps. And as the name implies, instead of being a heat map of all time, it's going to be a heat map of the past week. And why this would be useful is, for example, seasonal conditions. And finally, on the topic of maps, they're also going to be updating segments to have verified segments. So in the past, the whole community can create a segment within Strava. Everyone knows that, but unfortunately, sometimes those segments can be pretty confusing. If you're going to run the New York City Marathon, you might find 10 segments that say New York City Marathon, and you don't know which one is the actual segment for that route. Now, with verified segments, there'll be a little badge next to that segment to indicate that's the one, that's the actual segment for this area. Next up, we've got the new activity details page. And what they've done here is very welcome in my opinion. In the past, on the original Strava, you'd sort of have to tap into different areas to see like your heart rate graph, for example, or see your pace and heart rate together. And it got to be a little bit overwhelming and confusing for some people. Now they've made it much simpler. So now on the map view within your activity, you'll be able to see things like where you accumulated a PR or local legend status right on the map. And you'll see that data on the elevation profile as well. And everything is sort of just out on one page where you can scroll vertically and see all your information on the fly instead of having to dive deeper into any specific section. And on that topic, there's also a new challenge type within Strava where you can actually compete against an older version of yourself and challenge yourself against yourself, which is kind of fun. Finally, we're getting to the point of this video and probably what you've been waiting for, because I think this is the biggest announcement from Strava at this event, and that's going to be the inclusion of AI in the Strava app. And they're calling this athlete intelligence and not artificial intelligence. The idea behind this, in their own words, is they said they're trying to put a sports scientist in your pocket right on your phone. And what this does is every time you upload an activity to Strava, the artificial intelligence or athlete intelligence behind the scenes will analyze the data from that specific activity and then spit out a summary of that activity, which is really cool. And the good news about this feature is this is something I was actually able to test on my Strava, my personal Strava account. What you're looking at here is an activity I did yesterday with a bunch of people that attended Camp Strava this year. And as you can see, it was a 6-mile trail run with 1,300 feet of elevation gain. It was a bit of a doozy after getting off a 6.5-hour flight to get here, but I joined for the sake of science. And as you can see, I've got my activity stats here and I can scroll over. We've got some pictures from the run. Shout out to Kafuzi there. And if I scroll down, you can see all of my stats, but more importantly, you can see the athlete intelligence feature right there at the bottom of the page. So as you can see, after this activity, it analyzed the data and it says you crushed those hills with significant elevation gain and maintained a solid pace throughout. Your heart rate zones show a great mix of effort. So it basically took all that data, analyzed it, and then it spit out just a quick summary of what that activity did and what kind of impact it had on my training. Now, the folks at Strava did admit this is very beta right now. It's not full production ready, but early indications of this are very, very exciting because this can give you some real insight into that specific activity and what kind of impact it had on your training. And a lot of people, I think, don't quite understand all of the metrics that your watch or your phone might be showing at you, like your training load or your VO2 max or your TSS score. All that stuff can become very confusing. And the fact that this is just like plain, simple terms that sort of spells out what happened, I really like. And hopefully this can get to a point where it ties in with the training plans and maybe suggest some workouts to complement what you did. We'll have to see where it goes, but early signs are this is very exciting in my opinion. In the final big update to the Strava app announced at this event, you probably noticed already, is we got dark mode, and they introduced this in the most hilarious way. They basically had the CEO of Strava, he read off a bunch of comments from social media platforms like Twitter and Threads and stuff, all criticizing Strava and asking why it's taken so long to get dark mode.
This comment from Steph on X. Can someone tell the idiot running Strava that dark mode is all we actually want.
But ultimately, the CEO of Strava did explain that there was a huge challenge in doing this because the original Strava app was pretty old and built on an infrastructure that didn't support just swapping over all of the graphics to be dark, which, you know, from the outside perspective to a non-software developer, it looks pretty simple. Just make it all black. But he explained that's not the case. It's not simple at all, and they really had to redevelop the entire app from the ground up to make this happen and actually get dark mode. And as you can see, if I scroll around within the Strava app on my phone here, you can see it's all dark and it looks very nice. Even the mapping and navigation here, if I go to my About Me or my Activities page, it's all dark and it looks really good. Another huge benefit to this, as the CEO explained, is that now that they've updated the infrastructure of the app for dark mode, essentially, any future updates that they need to do, if they need to improve graphics even further or change anything dramatically, it's going to be a lot easier and quicker. Okay, friends, and that's sort of it for this event. This is all that was announced at the Strava keynote. I might have missed a couple of things, but it's all pretty exciting, and it's pretty cool to see them taking feedback from the general community and incorporating it into their app and their website. Now, I'm pretty stoked about some of these features, particularly the AI in dark mode. I'm really happy about that. Now I want to hear from you. Are you excited about any of these new features? Drop into the comments down below and let me know what excited you the most, what you're looking forward to, and if you're going to try to join the beta and try them out for yourself. And with that, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.